Please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please have a seat. State your name for the record.
Dawn Schmidt.
Good afternoon, Ms. Smith.
Good afternoon. Good
Sorry
afternoon.
about that.
That's okay.
Back in April of 2016, where were you residing?
2400 North Green Creek Road.
And I know there's a map, I think, on the monitor in front of you and a big screen behind you. And I think it's marked correctly where your house is. You can tell me otherwise. Is that about accurate?
That is accurate, yes.
Now, the road which would be south of you is which road?
South of me, so that would be River Road.
Okay.
Yep, West River Road.
And you kind of answered the question, that road goes east and west, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yes.
And I'll be honest with you, I should know this, but if you go all the way west on that road, are you headed toward, what are you headed towards?
If you're going west, you're headed towards Lake Michigan.
Okay. Now, I want to draw your attention to April 16th of 2016. I believe it was a Saturday morning. Do you recall being home on that date at that time?
I do recall.
And what were you doing?
Well, it was I remember being on my deck about 9 o'clock in the morning, drinking coffee, and I heard just kind of a disruption, a man and a woman's voice, not far from my home, down the road, and eventually the voice of the woman was getting closer to my home. So I got up off of my deck. I was sitting on my deck at the time, and I went through my home and looked out my front door, and I saw a young lady running down the road towards my home, and she was yelling, "He's got a gun, he's got a gun. Help me, he's got a gun." And so I opened my door, my screen door, and I motioned for her to come up the driveway to come to my home and to come in the front door. And I let her in at that point.
Okay. Now, was this a relatively young woman?
Yes, she's about 16.
Okay. And could you describe for the jury, her demeanor?
She was hysterical. She was a wreck. She could hardly catch her breath. She was hyperventilating. I was trying to get her to calm down. I immediately brought her, she was shaking, so I immediately brought her into a bedroom that was off of the kitchen, just to get her kind of away from whatever was outside. And she kept saying, "He's got a gun, you got to call the police, call the police." She was frantic. So I got her into the bedroom, and she was literally trying to crawl under the bed. She was trying to hide. So I was, of course, my anxiety was a little alert, so I closed the bedroom door, and then I realized that my phone was outside in the kitchen, so I couldn't call the police. I had to go get my phone, and so I got on the phone and called at that time. But she was just frantic. She was just, "He's got a gun, you've got to hide, you've got," she was just carrying on with that, and I couldn't get her to sit down or calm down. Or at that point, her hair was just, it was a mess. She came up the driveway without shoes on, so she was a mess.
At any point in time when you're, having this conversation with this young girl, did you notice whether or not she was injured?
Yeah, she did. She had an injury on her back. She did have a scrape on her arm. Her hair had come out. There was some hair of hers on the floor when she came in, and then there was blood on my wall where she rubbed up against it. So yes.
Okay. And I don't. Were you ever able to calm her down?
I wasn't able to calm her down. I mean, I was finally able to get her to sit down after I got off the phone with dispatch, and she knew that an officer was coming. She came in, and I got her out of the bedroom eventually, but it was like right before the officer had gotten to my home, and she sat down in the family room, and I don't think she ever had any water. She wouldn't drink anything, but she was very scared, very afraid.
And I think you indicated, but you in fact, or did you call 911?
I did.
Your Honor, just for the record, Mr. Johnson and I are stipulating to People's Exhibit 120H, which is the 911 call associated with Ms. Schmidt's testimony.
Okay, that's exhibit 88,
120H.
120.
Yes, sir.
And you're going to admit that?
Yes, sir. I'm going to actually play that right now.
Where's your emergency?
It says 2400 North Spring Street, please come immediately, we have a man.
Before I play that any further, is that your voice?
That's my voice.
Can you hear it okay?
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
guys hear that okay?
This is a girl that has a gun, we just had a
2408.
2400 North Spring Creek Road, come immediately.
Okay, we're gonna get out there, okay? Stay in the line with me, okay? Stay in the line with me. Who has a gun?
Well, there was a girl who just came up into my yard, and she said that a guy just came in, and, there was a, she just came up to my house, and I let her in, she said, I was speaking with a gun.
Okay, so the guy's not there?
Stop.
Is the female, the girl still there?
Hysterical right now, and I'm shaking, so.
Okay, can I talk to her?
Yeah, here she is. Oh. Hello.
Hi, this is 911, okay?
I'm calling, are you calling?
Yeah, we're gonna get some help there. How long ago did this happen?
I haven't jumped out of the car.
How long ago did this happen?
2 minutes ago, I ran. There was for the house. Yeah, and
Who?
he's funny.
Who was it?
I don't even know him. I'm just, please let me know right now. Please let me know.
You were in a car?
Yes, no, he brought me in here to get it. I said, does he use the phone? He said,
Where did he pick you up from?
I can show you if you're going to bring me back.
Okay, but you're at 2400 North Green Creek Road right now?
No, I don't know.
Okay. You don't know who it was, he just told you to get in his car?
Yes, I just asked you the phone.
What kind of car was it?
A van,
What color was the van?
silver.
What did he look like?
He was fat and he was bearded. It was
What was that?
he was chubbier, had a beard and a mustache.
And you don't know where you were when he told you to get in the van?
I was on River Road.
On River?
Yes.
Were you right by River in Green Creek?
Yes.
What's your name? What was that?
I forgot to announce this. This is a redacted version that takes out some personal information, so that's not broadcast. Just so that's when you hear that beep, that's the redacted part. So I apologize. I should have said that ahead of time.
No.
Okay. Somebody else in the room is talking to the officers right now, okay? How old are you?
I'm 16.
You're 16?
Yes.
Okay, did you actually get in the vehicle?
Yes, he told me.
So you were in the vehicle and jumped out?
Yes.
Okay. Alright, can you spell your last name for me?
I'm in so much pain.
Did she tell you to get in the van when he pulled the gun?
No. I told him I could let me out right here because he devises up here because I need to go advise. He devises right here. I said, no, it's not. Please let me out. I said, please let me out.
Okay, well, how did you get in the vehicle?
Like he was like, come in, we're on the busy road now, the catch you to the boat. He said, yeah, and when he wouldn't stop the car, I rolled out the
Okay, well, when you got into the vehicle, why were you in the vehicle?
To use his phone.
What was that?
To use his phone so I can call my mom.
Okay, you stopped, were you walking and got in the
Yes,
vehicle?
I've been walking for 5 hours.
Okay. Where were you walking from?
Where's Eric?
From where?
Where's Eric?
And you were walking for 5 hours? And you stopped the van? Okay. Okay. We do have an officer on the way, okay? I just need to keep asking some questions so we can know what happened.
My mom.
Okay. What's your mom's name? When did he pull out the gun?
When I start getting out of the car, I don't want to be right here.
Okay, so he pulled the gun when you tried to get out?
Yes.
What way did he leave?
He chased me. He was chasing me.
Where was he chasing you?
To the house.
And you don't know where he went?
No, he said, look at your husband. Please stop. I think I have a family. He was just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Okay. Were you assaulted at all?
No. But I don't need to go to the hospital. I drove out of his car.
Okay. Do you want an ambulance?
Yeah.
Where are you injured?
Well, all over again, stress all over me.
Where do you live? What's your address? What was that? Your phone was breaking up. Okay. You said you wanted an ambulance. I'm going to ask you a couple more questions about that, okay? What, are you bleeding?
Yes.
Is it controlled? Okay. Where are you bleeding from? Okay. Did he give his name at all?
It was really creepy, so I was like, let me out. And he was let me out, so I jumped out as soon as I saw him reach for the gun.
Okay. Are you breathing normally for yourself?
Yes, but I've been looking for a really, really long time, and earlier I was so lightheaded I thought I was going to faint.
Okay. How long ago until you saw the person that pulled the gun?
Hold on, just look at it right here.
What was that?
As soon as she called you guys,
It was right when she called us?
yeah,
Okay. And so you last saw him in this area?
yeah,
Okay. What color shirt was he wearing?
I don't know.
Which way did he go? We have house there, okay? Coming that way, okay? Can you spell your last name for me?
No. Yeah.
Okay. What's your mom's name?
The same last name.
What's your phone number? Okay, the officer's right around the corner, okay? How old about was he?
He was like in his 40s.
Okay. And was it a minivan? Was it a minivan?
No, it was just a normal size man.
Like a full-size van?
Yeah.
And you say he was about 40 years old?
You're so good. You're so good. What'd you say?
I said, what color hair did he have or anything?
Dark.
Dark hair?
Yeah, yeah.
Was it a white male or a black male?
White.
And you said approximately 40?
Yeah.
Did he go towards White? Did he go towards Whitehall or towards Muskegon?
I was talking, he took a right. Or he was going straight and I ran like left to the house and he kept going straight.
Okay. Are you talking to the officer?
No, he's pulling in
Oh.
right now.
Okay. And you said he turned right. Was that going north or south on Green Creek?
Is this north or south? North or south? He's going, if he went that way, is it north or south? He was going north.
He was going north?
Yeah.
And you weren't able to get a license plate or anything, were you?
No. He just told me he was going to let me use his phone, so I got in it and he wouldn't give it to me. And he said it was dead, so I was like, let me out. And he reached for the gun and I jumped out of the car.
Okay. Was it a long gun or a short gun?
It was a fake, but it had orange at the tip of it.
So it was a fake gun?
Yeah, okay.
What color was the gun?
It was black.
Are you talking to the officer?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and talk to the officer. Okay? Yep, bye-bye.
Instead of the 911 call that you can remember?
Yes.
And I guess for lack of a better way to describe it, the hysterics, is that what you remember as you described it to the jury today?
Yes. Yes.
Give me 1 second here, miss. Thank you, Judge. I have no further questions.
That's a fairly rural area. Where is which way do you go to Myers or a gas station or a strip mall or anything along those lines? Pharmacy?
You're going to head east on River, so yeah, and it's at the corner of.
If you turn around.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm
yeah.
terrible, Judge. Turn around on the map, so it's
You go that way.
Okay,
back that
thank
way.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Schmidt. You
Okay.
stand down.
Okay.
Next witness, please.
Thank you, Judge. People of the state of Michigan call Deputy Jeff Blackmer to the stand. Folks will be looking at pictures again, so I don't know if you want to take this time to resituate yourself.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please have a seat. State your name for the record.
Jeff Blackmer, Deputy Sheriff, Muskegon County Sheriff's Office.
Good afternoon, Deputy Blackmer.
Good afternoon.
Just going to situate a few things here. Why don't we start off with how long, or what department do you work with? And maybe you said that already.
I work with the Muskegon County Sheriff's Office.
And how many years have you been with the Sheriff's Department?
12 years.
Now, does that encompass your entire law enforcement experience?
I had 6 years prior with Cass County Sheriff's Office.
Okay, so a total of 18 years, please.
Yes, sir.
April 16th, 2016, in the morning hours, like around 9:30-ish, were you working and on duty that day?
Yes, I was.
And do you recall being dispatched to 2400 North Green Creek Road?
Yes, I do.
And I don't know if you remember, sir, where you were coming from and how long it took you to get there?
When the call came out, I believe I was somewhere around Whitehall Road in Giles. So it took maybe 10 or 8 minutes to get there.
Okay. When you got to the location, was residence, is that correct?
Yes.
And do you remember getting an opportunity, or at that point in time, meeting up with the individual who had essentially called in the complaint, Madison Nygaard?
Yes.
Now, could you describe for the jury, sir, when you got a chance to observe her, what her demeanor was like?
When I met up with Miss Nygaard, she was inside the caller's home. She was shaken, almost hyperventilating, really shook up, bleeding.
Now, in your 18 years in law enforcement, have you had an opportunity to observe folks that may be under the influence of alcohol?
Yes.
How about under the influence of marijuana?
Yes.
And when you had a chance to look at and observe Ms. Nygaard, did you make any conclusions as to whether or not she was under the influence of either one of those substances or both?
She did not appear to be under the influence of anything.
In other words, could you smell alcohol on her breath at all?
No, I could not.
How about marijuana?
No.
Now, did you get an opportunity to, I guess, observe the injuries to Ms. Nygaard?
Yes, I did.
All right. Starting with People's proposed Exhibit 3, was this one of the injuries that you observed on Ms. Nygaard?
Yes, it was.
And again, is that a kind of a fair and accurate representation of how that injury looked on that particular day?
Yes, it was.
Similarly, People's proposed Exhibit number 4, was that an injury that you had observed on Ms. Nygaard?
Yes, sir.
And again, fair and accurate portrayal, I guess, of how that injury looked on that particular day.
Yes, sir.
Okay? People's Exhibit 5, proposed, I should say, exhibit. Does that look like an injury that you observed on Ms. Nygaard?
Yes, it was.
And again, is that a fair portrayal of how that injury looked on that particular day?
Yes, sir.
Finally, People's proposed Exhibits 6 and 7, unfortunately, are the same photograph. But again, does that look like a fair and accurate representation of the injury, or an injury you observed on Ms. Nygaard?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I move for the admission of People's 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
No objection, Your Honor.
Received.
Let me just make a quick note of that. Okay. Now, was she able to, when I say she, Ms. Nygaard, was she able to give you kind of an account or a description of what happened to her?
Yes, she did.
And based off of that account, were you able to then determine, or did you determine, where that whole event may have happened?
Yes, I did.
And where'd you go?
After ProMed had taken her to the hospital, I went to the end of the driveway, turned right, which is north onto Green Creek Road, and I went maybe 50 yards, and I located a pair of shoes that she had been wearing, because she had described that when she tumbled alongside the road, she came out of her shoes.
Showing you what's marked as People's Exhibit, or proposed Exhibit 9. Does that look familiar, sir?
Yes, it does.
And in fact, is this a photograph that you took?
Yes, it is.
And I think it depicts the shoes that you described.
Yes.
What else? What other observations of this scene did you make?
At the very top of the screen, you'll see some scuff marks just prior to the first shoe. To me, that looks like where she had first. This right here is where she had first hit when she first fell out of the vehicle, and then both these shoes here.
Okay. Showing you what's marked as People's Exhibit 10. What are we looking at in this photograph?
Same thing.
Just a close-up view of this.
Just a closer view. Yeah, this is probably one of the deeper, heavier marks that was made in the gravel.
All right. People's Exhibit 11. What are we looking at in this photograph?
Facing northbound on Green Creek Road, so the driveway would have been back this way south. Just trying to give a generalization on how far the tumble marks went down the side of the road.
Now, is that your patrol car in the picture?
It is.
All right. Now, outside of the shoes and the scuff marks, did you make any other discoveries at this particular location?
Yes, I did.
What'd you see?
While photographing, I spotted something shiny on the road, and it turned out to be .22 bullet laying on the roadway.
Showing you what's marked as People's Exhibit 12. What are we looking at in that photograph?
The .22 round that I had observed laying on the road.
And, I mean, just for... I mean, how did you know it was a .22?
Just years of being around guns. I just knew it was a .22 round.
Okay. Were you aware, or did you make notice of the manufacturer of that .22 round?
That's a CCI, .22 caliber long rifle.
And CCI, is that a brand that you can buy?
It's a make, yes.
Okay.
It's brand.
Deputy Blackmer, I'm going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 121H. What's in that exhibit, sir?
Exhibit 61.
121H.
This is the .22 round that I picked up off the roadway, and this is the evidence envelope that I placed it in just prior to putting it in the evidence locker.
Okay. And I guess in the picture kind of gives it a little bit of justice there, but can you describe the condition of that round, please?
Well, it's been damaged. It's been what I assume has been run over by a vehicle.
The roadway area that we're talking about, what type of roadway is it?
It's a rough surface roadway. I'm sure you've seen before where crushed gravel has been put on the roadway, and you run over it until it gets packed and hardened. That's the type of road surface that was on there.
And just so we have a general idea, Deputy Blackmer, had some time passed from the time certainly the 911 call came in, and then you ultimately got and found the scene you were looking for?
Had some time passed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know if you know or not, but could you give us a guess?
I don't know, maybe an hour. I'm sorry, could you rephrase the question?
Yeah, maybe I'll try to make it a little more clear for you. Obviously, you interviewed Ms. Nygaard first.
Yes, sir.
You had to get there first.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yes.
And the call comes in, they're dispatching you as they're taking information, correct?
Correct.
And you're getting to the scene eventually.
Correct.
You have to spend some time talking to her.
Correct.
Then, and you tell me, and I don't know how long that took, but ultimately then that was your next move to try to locate where this incident happened?
That's correct.
Okay. And so my question to you is, give us a time frame from the time you get the dispatch call to the time you get to the scene itself and ultimately discover this unfired round.
Maybe a half hour total. When I arrived on scene, it wasn't long after that ProMed had shown up, and then when they had taken her, I went to the scene and located that, and then called the detective bureau.
All right. So I guess ultimately my question is, it wasn't as if you had found this bullet immediately upon arriving. It had spent some time on this roadway.
That's correct. Yes.
Does that round at all look to you like it's been weathered, like it's been out there for a while?
No, sir. When I picked it up, it looked shiny, new.
Ultimately, Deputy Blackmer, did this get turned over to detective?
Yes, it did.
Okay, and that was Detective Matt Schultz?
Yes, sir.
Did, outside of what you've just described for us, did you have anything else, I guess, as part of this investigation?
No, sir.
All right. Your Honor, I would move for the admission of Peoples 9, 10, 11, and 12, which are the photographs.
No objection, Your Honor.
Received.
And the admission of Exhibit 121H, the round that Deputy Blackmer recovered from the scene.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, received.
I have no further questions, Judge. Thank you.
Any Deputy Blackmer, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Do you remember testifying in these matters back in, ancient times, the preliminary examination?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you recall, well, first, I'm a little confused. When we first started discussing that object there, the bullet in the photograph, I thought you said it had some wear on it, but then at the end I thought you said it looked shiny and new. Am I missing something? Did I miss?
Well, as I heard his question, I thought he was asking when I was on scene,
Yes, sir.
did it look like it was weathered? To me, weathered is a graying or tarnishing of the brass, and to me, it was shiny. It was sunny out. It was-
Okay. In
it
fact,
was,
weather might indicate that when brass tarnishes, it turns a little green?
if it's exposed to moisture in time, it will. Yes.
Do you recall the preliminary examination when asked about the condition of this bullet? Do you remember mentioning that there's a little green on it? Do you remember that at all? This was a long time ago, but
Yes, I do remember stating that because at that time there was a little bit of green inside the aluminum, or excuse me, the lead part of the bullet, but it wasn't upon when I had picked it up.
I see. Okay, so is your impression that it might have tarnished a little while it's in storage?
I have no idea. I'm not a metallurgist. I don't know.
And that photo, let's see. Well, you're at a disadvantage here. I have a copy of a page of the preliminary examination transcript, page 244, in my hand, and I'd like to ask you a couple of questions because I'm getting a little different from what's being said now as it was said then.
Okay,
I'd like
sure.
to ask you about maybe to straighten out for me.
Sure.
Maybe this will refresh your recollection a little bit. Can I approach you, Honor? All right. Deputy Blackman, take a look at just that page and just very briefly, and then maybe we can talk about it a little bit.
The highlighted portion?
So, read the whole page, sir, if you would, just to yourself, though.
Okay.
Okay. And before I ask you about that, sir, would you take a look at that picture behind you? And let me confess, I have no firearms experience at all. So, but when I look at that picture, the bullet in the picture looks a little chewed, a couple of dents, couple of little, like, well, I'm not
Yes, sir.
characterizing. Am I missing something? Is that how a brand new bullet looks?
This bullet was laying in the roadway, and it was probably had been run over prior to my getting there.
Okay.
Arrival, and I may have run it over with my cruiser myself.
Okay. So you don't know how long that bullet has laid there?
No, sir, I don't.
And could you and you read the part in the transcript where we talked about it has appears to have a little green on it?
At the time of the prelim, yes, it did.
Okay. At the time of the prelim, it had a little green on it. Did you gather up this bullet at the time?
I picked it up, yes.
Okay. And then you put it. Was it dry to the touch at the time?
It appeared to be.
Okay. And then you sealed it in the evidence bag, right?
Yes, I did.
And those are kept in the evidence locker. I assume they're not kept underwater or anything like that.
That's correct.
Do you have an explanation for why there'd be a little green on it that didn't exist?
No, I don't.
Okay. And one more thing, Deputy. I'm going to show you what I think is a page from a police report. And am I accurate, if you recognize it, am I accurate in assuming that's a list of materials that you recover from the scene?
It looks like there was a...
That's not you?
That's
different
not me,
officer?
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Blackman. You stand now.
I just have one follow-up, Judge. One follow-up. Mr. Johnson, just for your information knowledge, I'm going to go a couple pages up, 241 of that same transcript. And I apologize. I'm trying to be as paperless as possible, so bear with me. Along similar lines of questioning, prior to that, and it's highlighted, so again, bear with me.
Okay, do you want me to look at just the highlighted?
Yeah, just the highlight portion.
Okay,
I'm
yes,
sorry.
yes.
Are you clear with that?
Yes.
In fact, weren't you asked at that same preliminary examination whether or not that bullet had been out for a while, and your response was what?
It looked new to me.
And looking at page 243, oops, which is the page just before the one that Mr. Johnson showed you, in the highlighted portion there, you were asked the question whether or not that bullet appeared to have been out for a while, correct?
That's correct.
And your response was what?
The bullet did not appear to be outside for a while. And it's not tarnished.
And it's, read the whole answer.
It isn't tarnished or anything of that nature. It's still shiny.
That was your response.
That was my response.
Thank you, Deputy Blackburn.
Yep.
Okay, please stand up.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. The people of the state of Michigan call Detective Matt Schultz to the stand.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear that testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please have a seat. State your name for the record.
Matt Schultz.
Detective Schultz, could you tell the jury what department you work for, please?
Muskegon County Sheriff's Department.
And how long have you been a member of the Sheriff's Department?
14 years.
And you're currently assigned to what division?
Detective Bureau.
And how long have you been a detective?
4 years.
Now, on April 16th, 2016, were you, I guess, did you become part of this investigation involving Madison Nygaard?
Yes.
And how did you, what was your role?
I was called to the scene by Deputy Blackmere as an investigator.
Ultimately, were you essentially assigned as the lead investigator?
Yes.
Now, did you get an opportunity to meet up with the victim in this case, Madison Nygaard?
Yes.
And where was that?
Hackley Hospital.
We've already submitted, or admitted, I should say, the photographs of injuries. Did you observe her injuries that day?
I did.
And how would you, when you saw her, how would you describe her to be?
Very distraught, scared, upset.
Still even at the hospital?
Yes.
Now, I don't want you to tell me what she said. I'm just asking you in general. Did she provide to you a statement, or did she give you a statement as to what happened?
Yes.
And provide you descriptions both of the driver and of the vehicle?
She did.
Now, prior to, I guess, digging deep into your investigation, did you yourself go out to the scene itself?
Yes.
And I want to show you, I think, took a couple of your own photographs, is that right? I want to start with People's Exhibit 8. Do you recall that?
No.
That wasn't you that took that photograph?
No, sir.
I apologize. How about People's Exhibit 13?
Yes.
All right. What do we got going on here, Detective?
That is my ruler, and it's displaying the measurements of the marks of where Madison jumped out of the vehicle and hit the ground, sort of bounced.
Okay, so you were just measuring the length of the scuff marks.
Correct.
And I don't know if you recall. Do you recall how long they traveled?
I don't recall. The deputy from our traffic unit was able to take the length and determine a speed, the vehicle speed of when she jumped from the vehicle.
All right. So if I understand it correctly, given the nature of the length of the marks, there was a determination of speed.
So, yes.
And is that different than actually at a dead standstill?
I don't know.
Well, you understand what I'm saying? Vehicle being stopped versus vehicle being moved?
Yes, correct, yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Asked a bad question. I apologize. Now, in your walkthrough of the scene, did you discover anything else?
Yes.
What was that, sir?
On the second, this was my second time out to the scene.
All right.
It was determined there was another live .22 CCI round found in the roadway.
Okay. Now, and I don't know if this picture helps you or not, but are you able to point out to the jury roughly where you found that second unfired round?
I believe that might be it right there, but I can't say 100%.
Okay. But it was in the roadway.
Correct.
Now, in your second walkthrough, did you try to, I guess, figure out, were you aware that Deputy Blackmer had found a round the day before?
Yes. It wasn't the day before, but the previous time we were out there, yes.
All right. So this is the same day?
Well, I went out there the same day as Deputy Blackmer.
Yes.
We went to Hackley Hospital, then we went back out to the scene, and he showed me the scene and the marks and whatnot.
Okay.
It was then Monday we went back out there. That's when the second round was found. It was determined that Deputy Blackmer's car had been parked over the top of it.
Okay. That you kind of answered where I was going with that. And we saw a picture of where Deputy Blackmer's car was parked, and you guys made the determination it was probably had been parked over that particular round.
Correct.
Showing you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 122H. I don't know if it's open or not. It is. What do we got in that package?
It's the .22 round that was in the road on that day.
All right. Now, can you describe for the jury the condition of it as you found it, and whether or not it's similar to the way you see it today?
It is similar to when I found it, and you can tell where it's bent and there's some scuffing and whatnot.
Okay. Now, I know you indicated in your answer, one of your previous answers, that you guys or the team made a determination that it was run over by a vehicle. Is that how the condition appears to you, or does it appear that it was put in that condition some other way?
It does appear that it was ran over by a vehicle.
Does that, when you found it on that particular day, and as you see it now, did it appear at all to you that it had been out there for a while? In other words, it had been subject to the weather conditions?
No, it looked like it was pretty fresh.
Okay.
It hadn't been there for years or months.
Okay. And I think you said this, but you were able to determine the caliber,
Yes,
which was,
it's a .22 caliber.
and were you able to determine the brand?
Yes, CCI.
Okay. Now, let's talk about how your investigation involving the silver van. In your conversations with Ms. Nygaard, were you given kind of an overall description of what this van looks like?
I was.
And as a result, Detective Schultz, how did you take that kind of description she gave and work that angle of this case?
Well, with that description, I went into our local police computer, old reports, and I pulled up those kind of minivans, silver caravan. Began checking the area, people that lived in the area out there where this happened, the River Road area, that may have this van, went through registered sex offenders and things in that nature.
Okay. And from that preliminary review, did you come up with any viable or potential suspects or vans?
No, sir.
Okay. What did you do next?
I began checking the area out there, different routes that the subject might have taken after the incident, and I was able to locate security cameras.
Okay. Now, this area in Muskegon County is relatively rural, is that right?
Correct.
And where exactly did you find security cameras to look at?
On Weber Road at the Blueberry Farm, there was security cameras. Weber
Okay.
Road and River Road.
And did you make contact with the owner?
I did.
And did that person allow you to view his camera system?
He did.
Now, we're going to play that here in just a second, Detective Schultz, but could you describe for the jury, prior to that, where these cameras were and what you can see?
So the building is would be the west side of Weber Road, and there's 2 cameras out on the building. There's one that kind of covers, it's a circle drive that pulls into this business, and the cameras cover the south drive and the north drive.
So there's essentially two entrances.
Correct. There's more cameras on the building, but there's 2 cameras that cover the road, Weber Road, and then the entrances.
Okay. And when you met with the owner, well, let me do this first. I'm going to hand you what's been marked as 123H. 123H. What is that, sir?
This is the CD that we were able to take off of the security cameras.
Now, did you get an opportunity to view the cameras themselves before you had it downloaded?
Yes.
Okay. All right. What are we looking at here, Detective?
That is the south drive
And
off the building.
Okay. And for point of reference, I think you referenced that's the south driveway.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
What road are we looking at out there?
It's Weber Road.
Is this all off Exhibit 123?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a video, still shots.
No, it's a video, Judge.
Okay.
Now, grab my notes here. In your viewing of the video, and this is the south, well, I guess it doesn't matter, south or north, but approximately what time on the counter did you end up seeing a potential van?
I believe it was 9:18.
All right. Mr. Johnson, do you mind if I go to that spot, or do you want to see the whole thing?
Let's move right to that spot.
Okay. I'm going to start the video at 9:12. Well, 9:12 on my counter, but it's 9:09. So I've started it at 9:16:45.
That's the property owner driving through there right now.
Okay. paused it at 9:18:14. Is that, well, I guess describe what we're looking at here exactly.
Silver minivan is traveling north on Weber Road.
Now, is this the minivan that piqued your interest when you watched this video?
Yes.
What, can you describe what you saw, I'll play it here in just a second, but what you saw as we continue?
So the minivan is going to continue traveling north. It's going to go by the north entrance as well. And then approximately 3 minutes later, you're going to see the minivan come back south.
Just for the record, it's 9:22:03 on the counter on the video. Again, this vehicle pulling in, is this the same vehicle you believe you saw going northbound?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what, if anything, did you do with, well, let me ask you this. From the video, did you take some still images?
Yes.
And why did you do that?
Well, we were trying to see if we could identify maybe a suspect inside it, because there's, you can, when he gets going, you can kind of see a little bit. And then also the license plate, we were going to try and see if there's a way to identify the license plate. And then also the different features of the van to figure out exactly what kind of van we had.
And what particular features were you interested in?
Well, after watching it several times, you can see there's a Dodge emblem. The trim, the rims, the length, and the antenna in the center there above the windshield.
And maybe just use your pointer.
Sorry, I forgot that you guys can't see it from here. Okay. So this antenna right here, that was a kind of a factor. This trim being black, the rims, and then the length.
Okay. Now, and did you gather stills of all those features?
Yes.
And ultimately, sir, what did you do with those?
Well, those stills, along with stills that were produced by the state police for us, they were sent out to law enforcement, and then they were shown within the community.
Okay.
I personally took those stills to a subject by the name of Mike Kring. Mr. Kring owns a used van dealership on Whitehall Road. He's sold thousands of used vans, and he was found to be somewhat of an expert. He was able to tell me that the different features and model and things on the van would be in the VIN, and would tell you what kind of van exactly it was.
Okay. So with that information, at any point in time did you show a potential range of vans to Ms. Nygaard?
I did.
And was that helpful at all in your investigation?
Well, prior to finding this video, I had showed Ms. Nygaard different vans from different Ford. I think it did a Ford, a Pontiac, and a GMC model, because they're different. Some are square, some are round. And she was able to determine that we were looking for like a Dodge Caravan type, or I believe Chrysler Town & Country is the same body style. It was after that we found this video, and that was obviously it was a Dodge. So.
Okay. Now, after your conversation with Mr. Kring, did you use the services of any other agency to help narrow the VIN stuff down?
We did. It was sent away to Dodge Chrysler, and then also to a gentleman that worked for the Secret Service.
Okay. And were either of those, was the Secret Service or Chrysler able to help you? narrow down the scope?
Yes, Chrysler was able to narrow down the VINs for us, and then Mr. Heathies from the Secret Service was able to take those numbers and kind of, I don't know how he did it, I wasn't there, he number crunched it and was able to give me lists.
Okay. So just for the jury's education here, how many VINs did you start with?
There was around 1,000, or over 1,000. It was a lot.
And how, based on the work with Chrysler and Agent Keyhouse, how did that whittle down?
They were able to get it down to around 10.
All right. Now, and I apologize, I got a little off track there, but since we had this, I wanted to ask you those questions. Going back to this video, what do we see this van do?
He's going to slowly go through the lot north.
All right.
And then he'll go by the north camera, and he pulls out the north drive. And then he'll go back south on Weber Road.
Now, Weber Road intersects with what road?
River Road.
And in relation to Green Creek, how does Weber Road sit?
Weber Road is west of Green Creek.
So in this particular frame, we're seeing this van now go south on Weber,
Correct.
and that's towards Green Creek.
Yes.
This particular image is what?
That's of the north drive.
Again, this is stopped at 9:18:17 on the video. Was this the van that was of interest to you?
Yes.
And again, this is still Weber Road, going north on Weber Road.
Yes.
This is stopped at 9:21:57. Same van?
Yes.
Again, now in what direction?
South.
Same van that we saw in the south camera?
Correct.
Now, from detective, from this driveway, from the north drive, do you know, or or have an idea of approximately how far Green Creek, or not Green Creek, excuse me, but River Road is?
I would estimate possibly 2 football fields, 150, 200 yards-ish.
And can you see from that, I guess from that vantage point, can you see River Road?
Yes.
And again, for the record, I stopped it at 9:22:27. Detective, is that the 2 videos that we just went through, both in the north and the south cameras, is that fair and accurate representation of what you saw that particular day?
Yes.
And is that how you remember doing it on that particular day?
Yep, it is.
Okay. Now, is it safe to say you didn't, or did you, let me ask it this way, did you view these videos on 4/16 of 16?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And did it take from that time?
I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. On 4/16, I did not review them that day.
Do you recall when you came in contact with the Blueberry Farm? And
I'd have to check my notes.
all right. Is it sometime after?
Correct, yep.
After the 16th of April?
It is.
And the only reason why I asked you that question, Detective, is just to put into some context the amount of time that's passing as you're trying to investigate this.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, you didn't make all these developments within a 24-hour period.
No, sir.
Do you recall approximately, from, obviously you took the complaint on the 16th of April, is that correct?
Yes.
And if I understood your testimony ahead of time, you found that unfired bullet on the 16th of April. Or, I'm sorry, you said the Monday after.
Correct.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
That's my bad. The Monday after, so the 18th. This was, if the 16th was a Saturday, the 18th would have been a Monday, is that correct?
Correct.
And then you started developing, as best you could, leads on this particular van.
Correct.
Now, during that time frame between, well, I'll straighten that. Okay. At some point in time, I think you indicated on your direct testimony that you narrowed down to about 11 vehicles.
Around there.
Around there. One of those 11 turned out to be Jeff Willis.
Correct.
And he was part of that list because why?
Because he owned, I believe it was a 2006 Dodge Caravan.
And did that fit within the year range that you were supposed to be looking for?
It did.
Based off of what?
Based off the VIN and the features on the van. Like I said previously, the center antenna above the windshield was very rare. I mean, we saw hundreds of minivans, and that antenna was pretty rare. Mr. Willis's van had that antenna, so that was a big indicator for us.
Okay.
There was also after MSP, apologize, Michigan State Police, they were able to blow up the video and make still pictures. There was also a rust area on the rear of the van that stuck out that we also found on Mr. Willis's minivan.
Okay. As a result, did you put together or generate a what we call typically a photo lineup?
I did.
And did you present that to Ms. Nygaard?
I did. I presented it. It was put together by another detective.
Fair enough. This is People's Proposed Exhibit 119H. Have you paged through that entire document? Does that appear to be the photo lineup that was put together for you that you presented to Ms. Nygaard?
Yes.
And was she able to pick out for you the person that had abducted her?
She was.
And were you able to associate a name with that picture?
Yes. She picked out number 3, which was Jeffrey Willis.
So he was picture number 3?
Correct.
And did you observe her both print and sign her name?
Yes.
Is there anything different about this particular exhibit that is different than how you originally presented it to her?
No.
Your Honor, I move for the admission of 119H.
No objection, Your Honor.
That's the lineup.
Photo left, yes, sir.
All right, what do you receive?
And similarly, I know I asked you these questions. I guess, based on your answers, I would move for the admission of 123H, which is the Blueberry Field video.
No objection, Your Honor.
Receive.
And also Detective Schultz, the condition that you found this unfired round, anything different than when you first found it?
No, sir.
I would move for the admission of 122H, which is the second unfired 22 caliber.
No objection, Your Honor.
Receive.
Okay, based on the information that you had up to this point, including the identification by Ms. Nygaard, what did you do next?
We began surveillance on Mr. Willis's vehicle and Mr. Willis.
All right.
Ms. Nygaard was also able to give some details of the inside of the van. A detective was able to find Mr. Willis's van at Herman Miller and also find those characteristics inside, one being a netting in between the two front seats that had what she described as garbage, and the detective was able to determine that there was in fact some garbage in there.
Okay. And based off of that, what did you in law enforcement, what did you decide to do?
We decided to have Mr. Willis stopped and brought in for questioning.
Okay. And were you part of the traffic stop?
No,
All right. Were you part of the question?
I was.
Now, this took place, you remember what day?
I believe it was the 17th of May,
Of what year?
2016.
Okay. And does the defendant look different today than he did back then?
Yes.
How so?
He's thin.
He's thin when? Yes, that.
Now, he's lost some weight since then.
All right. So he didn't look like this, like he does today, back when you interviewed him.
Well, I mean, beard, glasses, but quite a bit thinner.
Thinner now?
Correct.
Okay. In your conversation with the defendant on that day, did you read him his Miranda warnings?
Yes,
And did he understand those and waive them?
he did.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you talk to him and ask him about what he did on April 16th, 2016?
Yes, sir.
What did he tell you?
At first, he said he didn't do anything. He didn't think. He thought maybe he slept into 10 or 11, and then maybe spent some time with his dog. And then he said he had slept until 2.
Okay. Now, prior to interviewing the defendant, did you have some information as to his potential whereabouts?
Yes.
What did you have?
I had a receipt from Van's Car Wash, as well as 2 other pieces of video surveillance, which showed his van traveling north to the scene of the abduction.
And so after he said he didn't think he left his home that day, what did you do?
I began questioning him about when his last oil change was.
Okay.
And he told me 2 months he thought. But then with the receipt, he said, I guess maybe I did get my oil changed that day, but he didn't recall.
Okay.
I then asked him where he would have went after his oil change, and he said home. I began questioning him more, and he said possibly he went to PetSmart in Fruitport. I went to the next piece of video we had, which was Wesco at Whitehall and Giles. It showed his vehicle traveling north on Whitehall Road. I questioned him on that, and his answer was possibly he went to Tractor Supply to get dog treats or biscuits there, because possibly they didn't have them at PetSmart.
Now, do you recall, did he say whether or not he was traveling that day with an animal, or was he by himself?
He told me he did not think he had the animal at the oil change.
Okay,
But then again, he didn't recall getting his oil changed.
gotcha.
Didn't really get a straight answer on where he was or who was with him.
I guess that was kind of my next question. Did you get a sense as to whether or not, well, let me ask it to you this way, were you getting answers that you thought were correct?
No.
Objection, Your Honor. Cause for speculation from the witness.
Well, Judge, even though this is going to come out late in the trial, I do intend on wrapping the relevancy and ending the speculation, because the defendant admitted he was evasive with Detective Schultz.
At this point, the objection will be sustained because you haven't been able to do that yet.
Okay.
It remains to be seen.
Yes, sir. Thank you,
The
Judge.
objection is sustained, the witness's answer will be ignored by
Now-
the jury.
Now, did you talk to him about any handguns that he might have registered to him?
Yes.
And do you recall his answers to that?
Well, first I asked him if he carried a handgun in his van, and he said no. And I also asked him about an airsoft gun, and he said no. And then we got to registered guns, and he advised us he had a registered .380 and told us where it was in his home.
Now, did he ever say anything to you about carrying a Walther P22 handgun in his car?
No.
And if I heard your answer to the previous question, you had actually asked him that directly.
Yes. He was asked the question if he had a handgun in his car, and I believe he told us no, that would be illegal.
Okay? I've got one more question, well, actually just a couple of follow-ups here and one last question. Just so that I'm clear, as far as People's Exhibit 13 is concerned, that picture, is that a fair and accurate representation of how you saw it that day and what you did?
Yes, that's how I saw it the first day I went out there, and then the second time I went out there. The tape measure was placed down the second time we went out there.
Okay. Your Honor, I move for the admission of People's 13.
People object?
People's 13, I'm sorry.
I couldn't hear the number.
No objection, Your Honor.
Finally, Detective Schultz, the individual that you interviewed on that day, is that person in court?
He is.
Could you point him out, describe what he's wearing?
He's sitting at the defense table. He's wearing a blue suit with a red tie.
Your Honor, let the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant.
I'm sorry, I was.
No, that's okay. That's all right. I was just asking the record to reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
Well, I heard his description.
I have no further questions of Detective Schultz.
Okay, before you get started, the reason I was talking to the bailiff is he said one of the jurors is signaling they need a bathroom break. So we're going to take a bathroom break. It's time for him to break.